connecting. No, well, yes,
Okay,
it is.
So that mic has audio.
It sure is hooked up to mic 1, not.
I'll bet the other one's mic 2, isn't it?
No, so all right, now we have some sound. Now we can really talk about these storms and people will hear us. Thanks for joining us. Meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the First Alert Weather Lab, as well as meteorologist AJ Rickman, who is getting the proper microphone ready to be able to discuss as well. We're joining you because of a severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for portions of northeastern Benton County as well as all of Buchanan County. You can see it's a pretty good cluster of storms that is moving through at a pretty brisk pace. It's going about 50 miles per hour off to the northeast. So if we put the radar in motion, look how it moves through, and it will be gone before you know it as it continues off to the northeast. Now at this point, it does look like damaging wind are the biggest threats here. No reports that we are aware of. Let's take a look from the latest from the National Weather Service to make sure that still holds true. Yeah, they have seen some potential increase in the potential for some hail, but at this point, they have not seen additional new reports, which is good. But it is something that they are concerned about, the potential for a little bit of large hail as well as some damaging wind. And we are right there with them in tracking this storm. Now it is moving off to the northeast at about 50 miles per hour. The strongest portion of the storm is now in the southwestern corner of the county. So we'll go ahead and put a storm track on that. Takes it near Independence out by the airport at about 9:46. City proper closer to 9:50. Winthrop at about 9:59 and Quasqueton at about 9:55. And then it will start to move into other counties. And we'll see what the National Weather Service decides at that point in terms of giving it an extension or whether we will see this warning rather let and allowed to expire. So that is what we are keeping a close eye on at this point, that strongest storm moving through Buchanan and Benton counties. And it will still be affecting those areas for the next 45 minutes or so. So you can see if we pull back a little bit, it does show that there is a pretty good cluster of storms moving through just the eastern and northeastern portions of the state. And well, it's been a bit of a mixed bag so far tonight. Not a lot of severe weather, which is a good sign, AJ.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the first warning we have seen tonight in our area, eastern Iowa. And like you said, it's part of this larger complex of storms you can see on radar there that is steadily moving off to the east. The cluster that's currently moving through our area is currently outpacing the cold front. Now, the cold front is situated a little farther back to our west. As we take just a second here, switch over to Max 3, and we'll have a look at what exactly we're looking at in terms of where that cold front is currently located, because that cold front is going to kind of be the key for tonight as these storms are moving through, and we'll continue to likely see more of those storms across eastern Iowa through the rest of our night. There you can see that divide between the warm and the cold air across the state. A lot of the storms are firing up right along that cold front. That's kind of what's providing the trigger, if you will, for getting those storms to fire up and move along. As that cold front pushes off to the east through the rest of this evening, we are going to see it take the severe threat with it. In other words, once that cold front goes by your neighborhood, you're going to start to see that severe threat wind down. Storms will be moving out. You can see the colder air that's expected to funnel in behind it as well. But out ahead of the front, where we currently are, if you were to step outside right now, some of you, of course, would be getting wet and dealing with those storms rolling through, but you'd also be feeling a little bit of humidity in the air. We've got temperatures right now in the 50s and 60s, dew points also in the 50s and 60s. So at this point, it's a fairly mild, late winter, early spring night out there, but it's that mild and humid condition out there that is leading to the development of these storms and giving them that fuel source to feed off of. And again, you can see right now that warning that we are keeping an eye on that is currently in effect for Benton and Buchanan counties, and like Corey's mentioned, it's in effect until about 10:30. That is going to be gusty winds as your primary threat, also the chance for some hail that could get close to quarter size as the storm is moving off to the east-northeast, and will continue to move through areas towards Manchester, up towards Elkader, and just to the south of Olwine here as we go through the next half hour to an hour.
Yep, we're watching it, that's for sure. There is a decent amount of lightning in this storm as well as some vertical nature to this storm too. It's a 3D view of the radar. We don't use this a whole lot, but it's maybe a good way to illustrate what's going on here. So you see the white lines on your screen give a little bit of sense of the height of the storm. It's about 30,000 feet tall based on the radar picture, maybe a little bit taller than that at its very peak, closer to 40,000 feet. And so that suggests that it's extending pretty high up in the atmosphere. It's not quite as tall as you would see in a summertime storm when we have a ton of energy and those storms just have explosive development, but certainly strong enough that it does get involved into the portions of the atmosphere that are below freezing, and that's why hail becomes a possibility. You can see, we'll step back here. It's going to take a second to load as it brings up some of the data over the past hour or so. As the storm moves through, you can see its tallness has stuck with us, although there's been a little bit of a sign that this portion of the storm that was at its tallest, approaching 30,000 feet here, you can see as we go closer to real time over the next few minutes that follow, it starts to get a little shorter. And so perhaps if there was hail in the storm, it has started to fall out, and that threat would be a little bit reduced. We just haven't seen a lot of reports of it yet. National Weather Service continues their warning, though, until 10:30 for the possibility of quarter-sized hail and some damaging wind as well.
And Corey, kind of like you mentioned, that hail threat at this point doesn't seem to be the most severe or tense with this storm. Kind of looking at our estimated hail size, again, not something we use too terribly often, but you can kind of see as this storm has moved off to the north and east, that estimated hail size not huge, seeing the chance some pea to marble, maybe some slightly larger hailstones in there if you're under the most intense portion of this thunderstorm. But what you really are going to notice is that heavy rainfall. You can see, again, falling well within that severe thunderstorm warning right now. And there's going to be plenty of lightning with it as well. We've seen it in some of our city cams. And again, that potential is there for some gusty winds as well as this storm continues to move off to the north. There have been reports, I believe, of some gusts getting close to that 50-mile-an-hour mark, if I'm...
Yeah, 50 is what they had earlier.
Yeah.
So we haven't had fresh information that's worse than that, but that's good news.
It is, yeah. Good news with the storm moving through, that warning. Again, look at our some of our velocity readings on that storm. A lot of these are being measured higher up in the storm. The reason for that is because the storm is farther away from this radar that is taking those wind measurements. But again, in the higher levels of the storm, you're seeing some stronger gusts there. But again, at the surface, at this point, we're not seeming to see those stronger wind gusts translating down, at least to the extent of, again, getting much higher than that older report of about a 50-mile-an-hour gust. So again, at this point with this storm, looks like the big thing that we're going to be keeping an eye on is, again, that concern for heavy rainfall as it continues to track off to the east-northeast. And then again, that potential for a few stronger wind gusts within it, and that potential for some small hail as well.
Take one look before we leave you for a few minutes to get prepared for the 10 o'clock news, which will of course be available here where you stream us on KCRG.com too, as well as KCRG TV9. Storm Prediction Center, they're the ones that issue the watches, tornado watches. They also monitor severe weather situations. They issue the outlooks too, slight, enhanced, moderate, etc. They have just a new update just to say that they're still expecting that the threat for severe weather continues for that area where the watch continues. So nothing revolutionary, but something to keep in mind. That watch, of course, as we said, goes until 4 o'clock tonight. So they have trimmed back the central Iowa portion of this. It's eastern Iowa now, along and south of Highway 20, that has that chance to see stronger storm. So we are going to take a few minutes here. We're going to turn off this stream. We will be back at 10 o'clock for the KCRG TV9 news, as well as here on streaming. And then after the 10 o'clock news, if the severe weather threat persists, we'll be right back here where you found us. So thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there. We'll have more information as conditions warrant.